Hello, everyone. My name is Shahin. I'm a partner at Lux Capital. We're a venture capital firm, been around for about 25 years, funded over 300 companies over the course of 10 funds. We invest across healthcare and technology. We have a total of 5 billion under management, and current funds about $1 billion. I've had the fortune of having been at Lux for over 17 years. I've led investments in companies ranging from chips and satellites to rockets and driverless cars. I've done a bunch in AI and robotics, and I can tell you that venture capital is the business of failures. Our jobs as venture capitalists is to fund experiments and learn from those experiments. And one thing that I've learned is that just because something may work at a certain point in time doesn't mean that the same will apply at a different point in time, which is why venture capital exists. If ideas or technologies or markets weren't conducive to great companies or didn't support great companies, in the past, it doesn't mean that you can't build successful companies in those markets or around those technologies in the future, which is why you always have this cycle of experiments being made and great companies being created. Um, I was asked to talk about some specific examples of failures and what we've learned from those failures, and I can start from very early in my career when I funded a company uh, that was building technology that I actually worked on as a graduate student back in the day. So I was extremely confident in the technology working. In fact, I knew the technology worked. And what I learned was that just because a technology works doesn't mean a business necessarily can successfully capitalize on that technology. In that case, in particular, the company was selling a product. In fact, I can get more specific. They were selling a timing product. It was a chip that would go into electronic devices that provided a timing signal that synchronized all the devices on the chip, and that device was using MEMS or micro electromechanical systems to integrate a resonator into silicon. So all the electronic circuitry could be integrated with the mechanical resonator that served as the core of that device. And that made the device much more accurate and much more inexpensive. Um, and what turned out happening was that there were incumbents in the market that had the old school technology, and just given their market and given their economic advantage, they were able to offer the product that was the legacy, that used the legacy technology at a far lower price, just to push new entrants like us out of the market. And for us, just being a relatively small startup, we weren't able to compete, unfortunately, with these established players. So the big lesson from us in that, for us in that scenario, from that experience, was that just because you have a better technology, just because you think you have a cost advantage, doesn't necessarily mean that you can take market share away from entrenched incumbents that can simply sell their products at a loss to get you out of the market. Um, Another investment that I made also early in my career was building a product that enabled wireless HDMI. So this is back in 2009. It's funny, even today we still use HDMI cables, but this company, it was called Cybeam. They had built a wireless technology that allowed you to connect your HDMI devices without using wires. And who wouldn't want to use a wireless solution? Who wants to drill holes in the wall and have wires hanging down from their displays? Now, unfortunately, another market reality back in those days was that the consumer electronics companies who would have been our partners did not prioritize the integration of this technology into their devices. They, at that point in time, were kind of marketing other capabilities. And just from a marketing perspective, they were less interested in marketing this wireless HDMI capability. And so it was really the kind of marketplace dynamic that led to a very interesting technology that could have benefited consumers, just not taking off because it didn't have the level of support that was run by the brass at these large consumer electronics companies that again just did not see this as a priority. And their reasons may have not been rational. But again, like a lot of these markets are purely irrational. So the second lesson for me there was just because a technology or a product may make rational sense, if there's any kind of dependency on an ecosystem to adopt it and to support it, you should not expect that ecosystem to make the rational choice and adopt that product the way it should. We've had many failures in this business because things just take longer. As you know, the saying goes, you're better off being wrong than being early. And so if the timing doesn't work out for you, if you offer a market, which is relevant to the previous example that I gave you, that's just not ready for it, then you fail, just as though you would have failed if the product didn't work. And so getting the timing right is something that really has to do with both foresight and it has to do with a lot of luck. And I think anybody who wants to better understand venture capital and early stage investing needs to appreciate how much luck has to do with success of what we do. And what I tell my friends in this industry is that to be a great venture capitalist, you have to position yourself to get lucky. And the way you position yourself to get lucky is by investing behind people who maximize optionality, who are very creative in finding great talent and exploring interesting markets. And again, positioning themselves in a way that once that opportunity arises, that they would be able to jump on it. I can give you an example of a company that was very, very close to being a failure until it wasn't. And that was a company called Curion, which my partner Josh ideated and incubated in our offices. The company was building technology that would decontaminate water that had radioactive isotopes in it. It was basically a Brita filter that separated radioactive ions from contaminated water. And this company, this is back in 2007, 2008, when a lot of venture capitalists were running after solar companies and biofuel companies. They just weren't interested in nuclear. And fast forward a few years, and you had the Fukushima earthquake and subsequent tsunami, where their reactors were flooded. And TEPCO, who was the governing agency that was managing the cleanup, was looking for a solution. And Curion issued a press release and basically, informed them that they had this technology, and they got a call the next day. And the team flew out to Japan, and they airlifted one of their systems to show that they can basically pump the contaminated water out of the reactors, decontaminate them, vitrify the radioactive ions in a medium that's permanent, kind of like a bowling ball, and store those vitrified contaminants on site and not leak into the soil for hundreds of years. And so the company overnight went from what many of us at the firm thought, will be a failure to a success. And the way they did that was by being very, very creative and putting themselves in a position to get lucky. The company signed a triple-digit $1 million deal with TEPCO, and it was later acquired by Veolia. And so The big takeaway here is that just because something looks good in the early days doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be successful in the long term. And the inverse, where something is not working in the early days, doesn't mean it will not be a success in the long term. This is a very long it's a long game. It takes many, many years for us to turn these cards, and the best investors out there are the ones who are both, lucky and very patient. And so, just knowing all of that, if anybody's interested in investor, they have to be prepared to wait for a long time for these investments to turn a corner. They should be cognizant of the role of luck in this game, and they should be prepared for many things to go wrong and to have a great team at the company to be able to confront these issues as they occur. And so, I can spend many, many hours talking about failures, but I think the major takeaway here is that venture capital is the game of failures. And just because you learn from those failures doesn't mean that you can apply those learnings directly to future investments, but they can help you kind of guide your thinking as you have to make decisions, either as it relates to investing in new companies or making decisions as existing portfolio companies face challenges. And it always goes back to people. We say that as venture capitalists, we are glorified recruiters, where we are constantly on the hunt for the best people to form companies around and to recruit into those companies. And when you have great people, mistakes are made, people learn from those mistakes, and they apply those learnings into the future. And if they get lucky, they can build a great business.